Hello and welcome, my dear friend. Some lives don't follow the straight road. The blessings are huge, but the pain hasn't been small either. These lives start with detours. They rise with resistance, and they carry questions that don't always have answers at the time they're asked. If your life has felt like that, if you've ever looked around and quietly wondered, why was this my path? You're not confused. You're remembering. Because what if I told you this wasn't random? And now, finally, what's been building behind the scenes is starting to move. Not just the understanding, but the blessing, the shift, the openings you almost stopped praying for. But before any of it could arrive, something had to break open first. The people you couldn't hold on to, the places you were never meant to settle in, the parts of yourself you had to lose just to find your center again. This life, your life, wasn't just given to you. You agreed to it. Not because you wanted pain, not because you deserved difficulty, but because something in your soul recognized the shape of what it would become. You chose this assignment with God. Before breath ever filled your lungs, before the world got noisy, before anyone ever doubted you, labeled you, or misunderstood you. And you didn't choose it to prove anything. You chose it to remember everything. Because somewhere in eternity, your soul said yes to the kind of path that would require more awareness, more sensitivity, more spiritual muscle than most people could carry. You didn't ask for ease, because a life like this, a chosen life, doesn't come with ease. You asked for truth. And truth has a strange way of tearing through illusion before it feels like comfort. Let me give you a picture. Imagine being handed a sealed letter before birth. On the outside it says, "Open only when you're ready." You're born, you grow, and you start living life like everyone else. But something always feels slightly off, like you're acting in a play where everyone else knows their lines, but yours haven't been given to you yet. And then something happens. Maybe a loss, maybe an awakening, maybe the moment you finally get tired of pretending to be okay, and you feel it, that pull towards something deeper, that quiet inner knowing that this can't be it. That's when the letter begins to open, and what's written inside isn't a list of rewards or simple instructions. It's a reminder, you chose this, and now you're remembering why. The reason your joy sometimes has a quiet edge to it. The reason you've always felt things more deeply than others. The reason even small betrayals cut you with surgical precision. It's because you were never wired for surface-level living. Your life was designed to reach beneath it all, to go places most people never look, because your agreement wasn't about status, it was about depth. You didn't come here to blend in. You came here to break patterns, to shift timelines, to heal things your family never had words for, to end cycles that wore your bloodline thin. And yes, sometimes that has looked like being misunderstood, like being the sensitive one, the difficult one, the overthinker. But sensitivity is only a weakness in a world that fears awareness. And you, my friend, are aware on a level that can't be taught. That's why certain environments that felt normal for others always felt too small for you. Why certain relationships never lasted, even when you tried to shrink yourself to keep them. Because this life was never about fitting. It was about freeing what was always buried inside of you. And as long as you compare your unique, God-given life to someone else's normal, you'll always end up disappointed, because that ruler was never made to measure a divinely designed life. You know, you weren't late, you weren't behind, you weren't broken. You were being aligned with something ancient inside of you, something that couldn't wake up until the right moment. And now, it's waking up. That's why the patterns are crumbling. That's why the desires you used to chase no longer tempt you. That's why your soul is asking for different things now. Because your contract isn't just about survival anymore, it's about embodiment. This is the season where what you've always carried quietly starts to take shape visibly. So, if your life has felt strange, if your timing has always been off by the world's standards, if your milestones have arrived in whispers instead of applause, take this in deeply. You didn't come here to follow the map. You came here to become the compass. And the reason your life looks different is because it was never meant to be a copy. It was meant to be an original story, one others would one day be inspired by. The truth is, you could have asked for something else, a different kind of life, a quieter journey. You could have signed up for a story with less loss, fewer delays, and more immediate reward. But that wouldn't have unlocked what's in you now, because you weren't just shaped by what happened, you were shaped by how deeply you paid attention to it. There's something different about someone who notices everything. The way the light shifts in a room, the tone behind someone's silence, the moment the energy changes, even when no words are spoken. That awareness? That's not random. That's part of the agreement. God didn't choose you because you were already strong. He chose you because you were willing to become strong without pretending. He chose you because you said yes to learning how to see through things most people ignore. And for a long time, that may have made you feel like you were always just a little out of step with the world around you. You didn't react the same. You didn't chase what others chased. Even your pain felt different, deeper, heavier, like it was attached to something larger than just the moment. That's because it was. This wasn't about one situation or one season. This was about shaping a soul that could hold what others couldn't. You may have asked at some point, why did they leave? Why did that fall apart? Why couldn't I stay where I felt safe? And while those moments hurt, they were never rejections. They were redirects. God wasn't punishing you. He was clearing space, not because you weren't ready for connection, but because the people meant to walk with you needed to be able to recognize you as you really are, not the version you would have had to shrink into just to keep them. You weren't being removed from love. You were being returned to real alignment. And here's the part most people never get to hear. This wasn't just a spiritual experiment. It was a sacred setup. All of it. The loneliness, the confusion, the hunger for something you couldn't name. It was preparation for a life you wouldn't just live, but lead. Because you're not here just to get through things. You're here to shift things. In your family, in your space, in the unseen spiritual atmosphere around you. That's why it's never been easy to explain what you're going through. Because your process isn't meant to be understood by everyone. It's meant to be felt by those who are being awakened by watching you. You may not preach, you may not speak loudly, but your life, it teaches. And that too is part of the agreement. So what now? Now is the season where what you know inside finally begins to show up around you. The outer world starts catching up to the inner work, and things that used to confuse you start making quiet sense. The pace you were forced to walk, the solitude you didn't choose, the discomfort of not knowing what was next. None of it was wasted. It built capacity, it built clarity, and it built a deeper trust in the God who never left, even when everything else did. You agreed to this before birth, not because you wanted to suffer, but because you wanted to see clearly. And now, you're starting to see. The timing you once questioned is beginning to align. The relationships you thought you lost are being replaced with ones that match your spirit. The dreams you almost let go of are resurfacing with new weight, because now you're ready to carry them. And more than anything, you're starting to recognize yourself again. Not the version you had to become to survive, but the one that was always underneath all of it. The one that said yes long before the noise began. This isn't the end of your story. This is the part where everything starts to catch up to what's always been written. Because the moment you begin to walk with the awareness that you agreed to this, You stop fighting every detour. You stop asking to be saved from the path and start asking to walk it with your eyes open. That's when peace shows up differently. That's when alignment replaces striving. That's when God doesn't feel far. He feels familiar. Because you've met him before, and you're meeting him again. So when you look at your life today, with all its sharp edges and slow climbs, don't rush to erase the parts that didn't make sense in real time. Sit with them. You'll find that they were holding shape for something your spirit was always meant to remember. And now that you've remembered, you're ready to live what you already agreed to, fully, clearly, and on purpose. This is the life your soul said yes to, and this is the season where you begin to own that yes. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. If you found value in this message, please like the video and share it with others who might benefit. Don't forget to subscribe and continue your amazing journey by watching one of the videos showing on your screen that resonates with you the most. See you there. Hello and welcome, my dear friend. There are some things that, if spoken out loud, would sound like fiction. What they did to you. If someone heard the full story, they'd ask how you're still functioning, let alone smiling. But you are. And that's the part that's breaking their understanding of what strength really is. Not because you clapped back, not because you got even, but because you never lost yourself. They expected an explosion. But what they got was restraint sharp enough to cut through steel. And here you are, still standing. Not just intact, but clearer, still rising. Not just surviving, but refined. You didn't just get through the situation. You walked through something disgusting. And your soul didn't pick up a single stain. That's not normal. That's sacred discipline. Most people don't know what it takes to stay clean when you've been dragged through dirt by people you trusted. They don't understand the internal war it takes to sit still when your name is being butchered by cowards who would crumble under the pressure they tried to put on you. But you do. You were there. In the room when the lie was told. In the silence after the betrayal. In the moment when your hands shook with everything they wanted to do, but didn't. You felt the weight of every decision, and you chose not to respond the way the enemy expected. That's where the story shifts. That's why people are whispering about you now, but not the way they used to. The same ones who once poked and laughed, they're now watching in silence. Because the punchline turned out to be your power. You could have gone Old Testament. You could have destroyed everything with a sentence, a screenshot, a public moment of, "Let me explain." But something in you whispered, "Don't." And you listened, not because you didn't have receipts, but because you had wisdom. Because some responses cost more than silence, and you weren't about to spend your peace proving a point to people who already decided not to understand you. Let's get real for a second. Some of the things done to you were vile, not just unkind, not just hurtful. They were spiritually disgusting, strategically crafted to ruin you, not just externally, but internally. To make you doubt your goodness, to make you question your instincts, to make you feel so backed into a corner that you'd become the monster they could use as proof. But you didn't take the bait. And that shook them. You see, when someone tries to dirty your name, it's not about truth, it's about control. They're hoping to force you into a reaction that makes you look unstable, bitter, unhinged. But you were trained too well. You didn't get loud. You got clearer. And that's when it hit them. You weren't afraid. You were focused. You weren't passive. You were protected. Even in silence, you were operating with heaven's full attention. They thought they had the upper hand, but they didn't know who was walking with you. They didn't know that the same God who watched you cry on that bathroom floor was preparing a table with your name on it. And now they're watching it get set. Now they're realizing the very mess they made is the ground you're rising from. Let's talk about the part no one saw. The nights you almost broke your own code just to feel heard. The moments where betrayal made your bones ache. The days you wanted to shout, "I didn't deserve this," but didn't. Because something sacred in you knew the longer you stayed clean, the louder the truth would echo. And you were right. You didn't just survive. You preserved your essence. You could have thrown mud, but instead, you turned your pain into a platform. Not one built on revenge, one built on restraint, on emotional maturity, on divine calibration. Because you knew if you lost your center, you'd lose more than your temper, and you weren't going to hand them that kind of victory, so you stood still, and in that stillness, the whole system started to fall apart. Let me tell you something real. When someone is committed to misunderstanding you, no explanation will ever be enough. But when the energy shifts, when the truth starts knocking louder than the lies ever did, the same mouths that mocked you will be too full of silence to keep the act going. And that's what's happening now. Your glow doesn't match the gossip. Your peace doesn't fit their predictions, and they're confused. How did you make it through all of that? How are you still walking like nothing touched you? How did they not break you? Because you knew something they didn't. Every move you made was being weighed by something greater. And you didn't just want victory. You wanted alignment. You wanted to still be able to look in the mirror and recognize the person looking back. So you chose the higher path. And while it hurt, it also healed. You didn't escape the storm by hiding. You walked through it, eyes open, hands clean, and now you're shining. Not because it was easy, but because you stayed true when it was hardest. Here's the truth most won't say out loud. They didn't expect you to survive. Not because you were weak, but because they knew how strong the attack was. They had inside knowledge of what was said, what was plotted, what was twisted. They knew the lies were thick, the setup was coordinated, and the goal wasn't just to hurt your feelings. It was to dismantle your identity. They aimed for your sense of self. That's why your resilience scares them. Because if they had gone through even half of what they put you through, they'd be gone, forgotten, or curled up in some corner of bitterness. But you didn't collapse. You didn't trade your integrity for the illusion of power. You didn't sell your soul to clear your name. You didn't weaponize your pain. You carried it and turned it into clarity. You became dangerous the moment you realized you didn't need the approval of anyone who misunderstood your silence. The moment you stopped fighting to be seen and started protecting your peace instead. You see, the old version of you would have begged to be believed, would have fought to explain the nuance, defend your tone, justify the choices you made behind closed doors. But this version of you? This version doesn't need an audience. This version doesn't need an apology to move forward. You have become someone who can be trusted with power because you didn't destroy anything to get it. That's the part they can't copy. That's what's got people watching from behind fake accounts, old stories, and quiet regret. You became the proof that not all survival stories are loud. Sometimes they're quiet, sacred, and sharper than revenge could ever be. Let's break this down. You didn't win because you shouted louder. You won because you waited longer. You outlasted every whisper. You outgrew every lie. And the most powerful part? You didn't return the energy. You replaced it. You replaced shame with confidence, confusion with clarity, resentment with purpose. That's why people are drawn to you now, because you carry what they couldn't fake even if they tried. A clean soul that's been through fire and didn't turn to ash. Let's name what this really is. This isn't about moving on. This is about spiritual mastery. This is about what it means to hold divine power without burning everything in your path. You could have crushed them. You could have gone public. You could have dragged names, aired screenshots, and taken the low road paved in rage. But you didn't, because the calling on your life required more from you than emotional outbursts. And now that the smoke has cleared, it's obvious. They tried to make you look unstable, but your stillness became a testimony. They tried to make you invisible, but your glow became a spotlight. They tried to erase you, but you became unforgettable, because you remained who you were, when everything around you said you'd have to become something else just to survive. You didn't just survive. You maintained your soul. That's legacy. That's divine proof. So now what? Now you walk forward, not with a chip on your shoulder, but with peace in your step. Not to prove them wrong, but to live the life they thought they could sabotage. You don't need to explain yourself to people who saw the truth and chose the lie. You don't need closure from the ones who created confusion. You don't need to replay the past just to be sure it was wrong. You know it was. And the ones who tried to break you? They'll either witness your rise or hear about it from the people they tried to turn against you. You are not just a survivor of betrayal. You are a living contradiction to every low expectation that was spoken over you. You are a walking reminder that power without purity isn't power, it's noise. So if no one's told you this yet, let me be the first. The way you handled it was holy. The way you walked through it was sacred. The way you didn't lose yourself in their chaos is what's making heaven move on your behalf now. You didn't just endure something hard, you honored who you are, while the world tried to make you forget. That's why your smile isn't just a smile. It's a testimony. It's a sign. It's a warning to darkness that light can't be extinguished, only hidden for a while. You passed the test that most never even see coming. And the reward? Peace that no rumor can shake, power that no lie can strip, and a future that no betrayal can block. Welcome back, my dear friend. The cleanest hands in the dirtiest room. You didn't fight for the throne. You became the proof. It was always yours. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. If this message resonated, please like, share it with someone who might benefit, and subscribe to stay connected. Continue your awakening journey by choosing one of the videos on your screen that resonates with you the most. See you there. Hello and welcome, my dear friend. There comes a point in the journey where effort turns into resistance, where pushing forward no longer means you're growing, it just means you're exhausting yourself. And that's when God whispers, "I'm proud of you, dear. Let me lift you." But here's the truth most won't tell you. God can't lift what keeps fighting to stay in control. You may think surrender looks like giving up, but it's the opposite. True surrender is sacred alignment. It's choosing to stop swimming upstream in a river that's already headed toward your blessing. It's understanding that where you are, even if it's confusing or uncomfortable, is not a mistake, because nothing is random. There is no wasted season. There is no wrong current if God is the one guiding it. Sometimes you're not stuck. You're just resisting what's trying to move you. You're gripping the rocks when the stream has already shifted. You're trying to force the door that God gently closed to reroute your path. But what if? What if everything that's happening isn't blocking you, it's placing you? What if the detour is the map? When you finally stop asking, "Why am I here?" and start trusting that you're here on purpose, your spirit opens up. And in that opening, God begins to do something you couldn't do on your own. He lifts you, not with noise, not with force, but with ease, with grace, with divine orchestration that makes no sense to the logical mind, but feels like peace in your bones. But here's the key. God can only lift what's willing to loosen. Your fists, your timelines, your control. This isn't a call to passivity. It's a call to presence. You don't stop being the person you've become. You keep showing up with that gentle heart. You keep being kind when no one's watching. You keep honoring your values, your spirit, your truth. The only thing that changes is the fight. You stop battling life. You stop demanding clarity before taking a step. You stop cursing the discomfort and start realizing it might be the very contraction before your expansion. This is where so many people get it twisted. They think trusting God means doing nothing, but it's not about stillness, it's about alignment. It's the quiet discipline of walking forward, without forcing the road to change beneath you. It's knowing, I don't like where I am right now, but I trust it. Because I know it's not my final place. It's just a piece of my placement. And that trust, that's what puts you in the current. That's what puts your soul in the stream of divine momentum that's always been flowing, whether you could see it or not. Here's what you might not realize. The reason it's been so exhausting lately is because you've been swimming against your own promise. Not because you're wrong, not because you're weak, but because you're afraid to let go. And I get it. Letting go means letting life be life. It means accepting that not everything will make sense yet, that not every question will be answered in the order you asked it. But that doesn't mean the answers aren't coming. It just means they're arriving in the flow God created for you, not the one you tried to manage. You can either resist what is or surrender to what will be. There is no shame in struggling. There is only peace in choosing differently when your spirit is ready. And if you're here, if your heart is hearing this, then maybe you are ready. Ready to stop fighting for outcomes and start receiving direction. Ready to stop climbing walls that were never yours to scale. Ready to let the current carry you, not into stagnation, but into divine destination. Because when God lifts you, it doesn't feel like effort. It feels like elevation. It feels like being carried somewhere beautiful that you never had to chase. But you do have to trust. You do have to stop grabbing for control when what you need is contact. Divine contact. Heart contact. Alignment with your path, not your fear. This isn't weakness, this is wisdom. And it's the beginning of everything that's next. Let's take it even deeper. You weren't created to carry the whole river, just to float in it. You weren't designed to micromanage grace. You were meant to live in a rhythm with heaven, to breathe with God, to flow. But somewhere along the way, someone taught you that strength meant resistance, that progress meant hustle, that being mature meant having answers before taking a step. So now when life doesn't look like movement, you panic, you clench up, you try to strategize your way out of something that was never a punishment, only a pause. But here's the truth. Where you are is not a mistake. It's not a detour. It's not a delay. It's placement. And placement always comes before elevation. Think about it. Even the most powerful eagle doesn't fly until the wind shows up. It doesn't flap for hours trying to control the air. It waits. And when the current comes, it spreads its wings and lets the wind lift what it could never achieve through effort alone. That's not laziness. That's wisdom. That's what you're being invited into right now. To stop flapping and start opening. To stop trying to manufacture momentum and start sensing what's already moving around you. Because there is something moving, something divine, and it's trying to carry you further than you could go on your own. But here's the thing. You have to be available to it. Trust doesn't mean waiting and doing nothing. It means living your life as if you already know you're being carried. You keep showing up. You keep being the kind, discerning, wise soul you are. You don't lose your edge. You just stop trying to control every blade of grass on the way to the garden. Because when God lifts you, He lifts the real you, not the mask you wear for safety, not the hustle you use to earn approval, not the calculations you run to avoid uncertainty. He lifts the surrendered version of you, the one who knows that not everything has to be perfect before you feel peace, the one who trusts that even the confusion is sacred. Yes, even the confusion. Because here's what no one talks about. Confusion is sometimes how clarity begins. The fog humbles you. It slows you down. It makes you rely on faith instead of formulas. And when you surrender to that, truly surrender, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start whispering, "God, what are you showing me through this?" That shift in question, that's where the lifting begins. Not externally, not with fame, not with an overnight miracle, but internally. Your vibration rises, your sensitivity sharpens, your vision opens, your discernment deepens. You start to see the divine fingerprints on things that used to look like mess. You start to bless the lessons instead of cursing the delays, and without even realizing it, you're in flight. Not from striving, from surrender. And here's the beautiful part. When you finally stop fighting for what you thought was your path, God reveals what was always yours. Not by force, not by begging, but by alignment. Because the current of blessing never stopped flowing. You just stepped out of it for a while to protect yourself, to prove something, to feel safer with the illusion of control. But now you're coming back to the current, back to trust, back to that soft, sacred voice inside that says, "Let go, I've got this." Let go of how you thought it was supposed to look. Let go of who you thought was supposed to support you. Let go of the deadlines you gave God. Let go of the guilt for not being further along. Let it all go, and let Him lift you. Because what's coming? You won't have to fight for it. You'll just have to be open to receive it. This is not the end of your story. This is the exact moment where the elevation begins. But only if you loosen your grip on the riverbank. Only if you surrender to the water. Because God doesn't need you to be perfect. He just needs you to float, to trust, to be carried by something bigger than your fear. So here's your reminder, dear soul. You're not late. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're being lifted, quietly, steadily, beautifully. And the places He's taking you, you couldn't even imagine if you tried. So stop swimming upstream. The blessing is in the current. Let go and rise. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. If you found value in this message, please like the video and share it with others who might benefit. Don't forget to subscribe and continue your amazing journey by watching one of the videos showing on your screen that resonates with you the most. See you there. Hello and welcome, my dear friend. Not everyone was built to carry a sentence like this. Some souls collapse under prophecy, others become it. So before anything else is said, breathe. Not a shallow breath, a real one. Like you're letting oxygen into a place that's been shut for years, because this message doesn't ask for your attention. It requires your readiness. You didn't scroll into this. You were summoned. And the proof is in what your spirit is doing right now, before your mind has caught up. The heat in your chest, the hum behind your ribs. That's not emotion, that's recognition. Because something ancient is knocking from the inside out, and it's time to answer. So here it is, the sentence that doesn't come to correct you. It comes to complete you. I have stored myself inside of you. Let it land, not in your logic, in your marrow. Because this is not a metaphor, this is not poetry, this is an event. God didn't write that sentence in Scripture. He didn't shout it from the heavens. He whispered it into the softest part of your becoming. Because only the real you would know how to receive it. You've spent years chasing signs, looking for confirmation in clocks and clouds, begging the sky to show you what you've always carried. And now heaven says, you were never waiting on me. I've been waiting on you. to remember. You thought the ache meant absence. You thought the pressure meant punishment. You thought the silence meant something was wrong. But the truth is, silence is where the sacred gets sealed. He didn't put your anointing on display. He stored it. And not in the stars, not in the voices of others, not in accolades or platforms or public praise. He hid it where no one could touch it, inside of you. And now you understand why you've been breaking down in rooms that feel too shallow. Why you can't fake interest in conversations that used to comfort you. Why your tears are coming from places you can't even explain. Because the part of you that's been locked up is finally being called by its real name. Not healer, not light worker, not empath. Those are labels people give when they see your echo. But this is the origin sound. You are not becoming powerful. You are remembering that you've always been the vessel. And that's why your body feels like it's shifting dimensions, why your senses are heightened, why sleep feels like ceremony and stillness feels like language. Because something hidden is awakening, not gently, but deliberately. God didn't store himself in you to make you comfortable. He did it to make you dangerous to darkness, to let your presence interrupt cycles, to let your words activate healing that therapy never could, to let your silence dismantle spiritual noise. You're not here to do something. You're here to become what hasn't been seen yet. And that's why the sentence had to come now, because you're finally still enough to hear it, finally cracked open enough to receive it, finally brave enough to release it. You've been mistaken for intense, difficult, too sensitive, too much, too different. But what people called excess was actually sacred compression, a whole kingdom folded into a single soul, waiting, yearning, vibrating just beneath your survival mechanisms. It's no wonder you felt exhausted. You've been carrying something that was never meant to be dormant, and now it's leaking. The oil, the insight, the instruction, not in sermons, but in breath, in glance, in presence. Because when God stores himself inside of someone, he doesn't need them to prove it. He lets their very existence become the confirmation. So listen closely. You are no longer just someone with potential. You are someone who's been encoded with a pattern, and that pattern is now being unlocked. That's why your nervous system is rebelling against the ordinary. Why your body aches for mystery. Why you find yourself crying in places that look peaceful but feel wrong. You've been mistaking spiritual labor for burnout. But this is not exhaustion. It's emergence. This is not fatigue. It's the weight of something holy stretching itself awake inside of you. And the reason nothing feels real anymore? Because you've stopped orbiting the world and started remembering that you are the axis. This isn't spiritual ego. This is divine recollection. Chosen one, this is not the time to question your path. This is the moment to remember that you are the path. Because what God stored inside of you was not just for survival. It was strategy. He put the seed of solution in your skin, and now the world is dry enough to need it. So don't shrink, don't analyze, don't ask for permission. Breathe again. Now let's talk about the fire, not the kind others see, the kind that lives under your skin, quiet and relentless, like a second heartbeat. You've called it anxiety. You've blamed yourself for the intensity. You've wondered if maybe something is just off inside you. But the truth is, you've been hosting something heaven placed in a human container that's still adjusting to its voltage. That discomfort, it's not dysfunction. It's divine data trying to run on outdated systems. That's why you've been detaching, not out of bitterness, but because your soul finally realized some rooms were too small for your sentence. That's why your relationship started to shift. Because connection built on convenience can't hold a person built for consequence. See, when God stores himself inside of you, he doesn't just give you insight, He gives you impact. And impact doesn't come with applause. It comes with adjustment. It rearranges what you thought you needed. It dismantles what you used to chase. It makes you allergic to anything not aligned. You've probably noticed you can't fake it anymore. Can't pretend certain conversations still interest you. Can't play along with spiritual performances that sound right but feel wrong. Because you've seen too much, felt too deep, lost too many parts of yourself trying to be normal in environments that only celebrated what was manageable. But you weren't created to be managed. You were made to move things. That's why the silence lasted so long. It was God muting everything around you so you'd be forced to hear what's within you. And now, you're hearing it. That inner sound. That vibration you used to ignore because it didn't make sense in church or school or even prayer. It was the hidden chamber, the place trauma never touched, the part of you that didn't fracture when everything else broke. That's where he stored himself. And now, that chamber has opened. You've been mistaking the symptoms, the trembling, the dreams, the sudden rush of clarity followed by collapse. You thought you were falling apart. But this is what awakening looks like when it's not romanticized. Messy, lonely, blinding, and sacred. Because he didn't store a sermon inside you. He stored strategy. Not a platform, a pattern, not a performance, a pulse. And that pulse is syncing now with what's unfolding in the unseen. You're not just waking up, you're aligning. And alignment comes with loss. You're going to outgrow spaces that once felt like home. You'll love people you can't walk with anymore. You'll miss versions of yourself that were easier to carry, but too small to fulfill the call. Let it go. All of it. Let the image collapse. Let the plan burn. Because your anointing was never supposed to serve your ego. It's here to serve a generation. And they're not looking for perfection. They're looking for someone who's real enough to bleed and still bless. That's you. You are not the clean answer. You are the raw revelation. You are not the polished brand. You are the oil-soaked voice that doesn't flinch when truth costs everything, and it will cost everything. The version of you who needed to be liked? Gone. The one who needed to be understood? Buried. The you who used to wait for permission now speaks like someone who remembers the scroll. Because when God said, "I have stored myself inside of you," he wasn't flattering you. He was calling you out. You're not here to debate it. You're here to demonstrate it. And demonstration will require discomfort. Your comfort zone can't carry this mantle. Your old language can't name this version of you. So stop trying to explain. Stop asking small minds to recognize sacred blueprints. They weren't given the map. You were. Walk it. Even when it feels wild. Even when you want to quit. Even when every part of you aches for what used to be easy. Walk it anyway, because ease is not your assignment. Embodiment is. And you, my dear friend, you are now stepping into a kind of authority that doesn't make sense until it's felt. People won't understand why they shift when you speak, why your silence stings, why your presence unsettles everything they thought was true. It's not you, it's what's in you. And now that you know, you can't pretend not to. You can't shrink for safety. You can't silence what heaven just activated. This sentence doesn't just live in your bones now. It walks with you. It speaks through you. It transforms what it touches. This is your call. The prophecy has a face, and it's yours. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. If this message resonated, please like, share it with someone who might benefit, and subscribe to stay connected. Continue your awakening journey by choosing one of the videos on your screen that resonates with you the most. See you there. Hello and welcome, my dear friend. Something is being measured in you right now, but not the kind of thing you can prove with effort. This isn't about how much you can hustle or how long you can pretend to be okay. It's deeper than endurance. It's more precise than pain. God is testing the strength of your alignment when there's nothing to hold on to but peace. No flash, no applause, no obvious proof. Just you and what you're becoming. He's not waiting to see how loud your worship is. God isn't looking for the loudest faith in the room right now. He's looking for the kind that stays true when nothing feels familiar. The kind that doesn't flinch when comfort disappears. Because before God gives a chosen one more influence, He checks their internal weather. And lately, yours has been shifting, hasn't it? There was a time you could move through the day clear, convicted, responsive. But now, the air feels thicker. Your thoughts take longer to land. You feel heavier, not in body, but in energy. This is friction before divine release. God is refining how you hold pressure. Not the loud kind that breaks doors open, but the quiet kind that builds fortitude when no one else sees the weight you're managing. Some days it feels like you're trying to carry water in your hands. No matter how careful you are, something slips through. That's how spiritual testing works. This part of your journey is meant to strip away every old method you once used to feel safe. Because where you're going, survival strategies won't work. Only stewardship will. And so God slows you down, not to stop you, but to make sure you're still carrying what matters, not just what's familiar. You might have noticed sudden emotional agitation, long-buried thoughts resurfacing without warning, temptations dressed in the clothes of past patterns. That's not regression, that's divine exposure. Not to shame you, but to make sure what's buried doesn't erupt later under pressure. God doesn't mind your emotions, but He will confront the ones that still try to steer your life in moments of weakness. And that's the test. Can you stay steady when your old story tries to convince you it still belongs? Some of you have been seeing the signs, the delay, the slowness, the quiet turning in the spirit. What used to come easily now resists your touch. What once confirmed your path now offers nothing but stillness. That doesn't mean it's broken. It means you're being prepared to handle more without needing validation to keep going. God is shifting your relationship with obedience. He's teaching you how to respond with trust instead of urgency. How to walk when clarity isn't announcing your next step. Because what's coming will require you to move before the world understands why. Let me tell you something no one likes to admit. You can be deeply called and still get tired of being refined. You can love God and still feel resentful about the process. But don't confuse fatigue with failure. You're not collapsing. You're outgrowing how you used to cope. This next chapter cannot be led by the version of you that second-guesses every instinct. It won't tolerate indecision. It won't survive under self-sabotage. It's too holy to be handled with reactions that belong to a version of you that God already buried. You were never meant to sprint your way into what's sacred. You were meant to carry it like a vessel. And that means your character must be shaped to match what's coming. This is why He allowed the pause. This is why He's letting some doors stay closed a little longer. Not because you failed, but because the person you're becoming is too precise to be rushed. This part of the path feels narrow for a reason. It has to press the unnecessary out of you. And if you're honest, you've started to feel it. The difference between moving with vision and moving with noise. The inner shift that whispers, there's no room for distraction here. What's coming won't make sense to the masses, and it doesn't have to. Because the next season of your life is not about being seen. It's about being sealed. And this test, it's not just about surviving discomfort. It's about proving to heaven that what's forming inside of you is finally strong enough to carry the blessing that's been circling your name. That's why it feels different this time, because it is. So let's be honest now. What if this is the last time you ever had to walk through something this unclear, and God just needs to know how you handle the fog? Not how loud you can pray, not how many steps you take when you're told to move, but how you hold your stillness when the world stops giving feedback. This is a proving ground. The tension you're feeling isn't just emotional, it's spiritual traffic. Heaven is organizing what belongs to you, and before it arrives, God is asking you to get real with yourself. Can you forgive someone who never apologized without losing your softness? Can you let go of the timeline you clung to without letting go of the promise? Can you carry sacred weight without constantly needing to drop it for someone else to validate it? Because what's coming isn't about your image, it's about your integrity. Let me put it plainly. You've been trying to walk like it's still the season of approval, but God has already moved you into the season of authority. That's why the things that used to encourage you feel empty. That's why old comforts now feel tight, suffocating, irrelevant. You've outgrown needing proof to walk in your knowing. And the test right now is not survival, it's sensitivity. The Spirit is sharpening your discernment because there's no room for loose agreements in the territory ahead. You can't afford to nod to every emotion that shows up. You can't treat doubt like a guest and still wonder why peace keeps leaving the room. You are being taught how to manage what hasn't even fully arrived yet. And that's a holy responsibility. This is why your senses are heightened, why your body has felt out of sync, why time feels slower, but everything feels more important. You're not broken, you're being trained in stillness. Because your next move has nothing to do with momentum and everything to do with alignment. Let's talk about the version of you that keeps trying to fix things God already buried. The one that wants to explain, to rush, to reach. That version doesn't need more healing, it needs closure. You have to let the old rhythm break. You have to stop confusing absence with rejection. God didn't ghost you, He grew you. And that growth pulled you past the sound of familiar things. That's why the room feels quieter. You were never meant to bring that old noise into this new atmosphere. This test, this one right now, isn't about whether you'll pass. You've already passed the point of proof. This is about possession. Can you hold what heaven is handing you? Can you protect it without over-explaining it? Can you walk with it, even if people start questioning you? Can you carry it, even when you feel undeserving? Because God isn't just placing gifts in your hands, He's placing assignments. And assignments don't care how loud your doubt is, they respond to your consistency, your clarity, and your obedience. And here's the wildest part. Most of what you've been asking for has already been released in the Spirit. But you've been delayed on purpose, because heaven refuses to let you fumble what you were born to carry. It's not punishment, it's mercy. You are becoming someone who can hold the weight of destiny without misplacing your peace. And once that version of you is steady, God will accelerate what was delayed. So here's where this all lands. This is the test that comes before doors you didn't knock on open by themselves. This is the moment where silence becomes strategy. This is the season where spiritual weight becomes your passport, not your prison. Let the distractions fall. Let the noise die down. Let the silence speak. Because it's not just that something is coming. It's that something is about to arrive, and God wanted you ready without needing applause to receive it. Let them wonder. You know what's real. Heaven is closer than it looks. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. If you found value in this message, please like the video and share it with others who might benefit. Don't forget to subscribe and continue your amazing journey by watching one of the videos showing on your screen that resonates with you the most. See you there. Hello and welcome, my dear friend. There is a moment in every chosen life where the story flips, not in private, but in full view of those who thought they had you figured out. And that's exactly where you are. You've been showing up quietly, doing the work no one even understand, carrying what others couldn't even name. And now, heaven has decided it's time the curtain comes up. This next season isn't about being hidden. It's about being announced. Not with ego, not with drama, but with undeniable evidence. Because while people were watching the surface, God was building something they could never predict underneath it. And now, the fruit is showing. This isn't just about reward. It's about redemption in real time. You didn't build your life in public. You built it in moments nobody saw. The nights you chose integrity over instant gain. The mornings you got up even when the grief made your bones feel like cement. The conversations you walked away from, not because you were scared, but because you knew you were made for more than cheap chaos. You've been faithful in the invisible. And now, the visible is catching up. You didn't ask for a spotlight, but the light is coming anyway, because your obedience can no longer be ignored. There's a different kind of glow on a person who didn't rush to prove themselves. A weight, a calm, a frequency that says, I've already been approved somewhere higher. And that's what's confusing people now, because you didn't network your way into this. You didn't campaign for recognition. You didn't twist yourself into something more palatable. You just stayed true and stayed planted. And God saw every second of it. They saw someone average. God saw a vessel. They saw someone behind. God saw someone becoming. And now the two timelines, what people saw and what God knew, are about to collide in public. Your name is entering rooms you've never stepped into. And not because of visibility, because of credibility. Spiritual credibility, soul maturity, legacy-level resilience. You didn't get here by being charming, you got here by being chosen. And no algorithm can explain that. God isn't trying to pay you back. God is revealing what was never lost, just growing under pressure. This next breakthrough? It's not just a reward, it's a reveal. A reveal of everything you planted while people underestimated you. A reveal of every assignment you carried with no one cheering. A reveal of the substance behind your silence. Because people thought your silence was absence, but it was actually alignment. Now, everything that once looked still will begin to move, but not in a chaotic, rushed way, in a way that says, this has been earned, and heaven agrees. You didn't manipulate your way here, so they can't explain how you made it. You didn't chase a platform, so they can't take credit for your rise. You didn't run ahead of divine timing, so the arrival will feel undeniable. Get ready for the strange reversal. People who once had power over your name will now have to watch it rise, without their permission. And you won't need to say a word. Because the elevation will speak louder than anything you could post, prove, or explain. This is a public moment, but it's not for public approval. It's for God's demonstration. So take a breath. You're not late or behind. You're not being overlooked. You're being revealed. And when it happens, it'll be so clear that even those who didn't believe in you will wonder how they missed what was in front of them all along. Stay ready, because God is about to reward you in public. Not for attention, but as a sign. A sign that heaven has eyes. A sign that integrity is seen. A sign that you were always qualified. You were just waiting for the reveal, and now it begins. Let them talk, because they will. The moment heaven starts putting evidence behind your obedience, people start reaching for explanations that make them feel safe again. But the truth is, they can't explain this. Not because it's too mysterious, but because it was never theirs to recognize in the first place. God didn't loop them in. And now they're witnessing a rise they didn't co-sign. That's what unsettles them. Because while they were preoccupied measuring fruit, God was cultivating your roots. You weren't growing outward. You were growing downward. Getting steady, getting strong, getting undistracted. And now, that hidden system is producing visible evidence. Not because you strategized, but because you surrendered. You didn't hustle your way into this moment. You held your peace when it would have been easier to pop off. You gave when you were empty. You served when you were unseen. You loved people who didn't even think you were worth a proper goodbye. And through all of it, you stayed close to the whisper. So what's happening now? The whisper is becoming a wave. And the wave, it's carrying your name further than anything you could have forced by your own strength. This is the kind of reward that comes from soul integrity. Not perfection, alignment. Not presentation, substance. This next chapter isn't about being discovered. It's about being confirmed. Confirmed in the presence of people who quietly questioned your process. Confirmed without the need to clap back or prove them wrong. Confirmed in a way that even they have to say, "This has to be God," because it is. This is not a promotional moment, it's a prophetic one, and prophetic moments carry weight. Not just attention, weight. The kind that makes you walk different, think different, choose different. Because once you've been trusted with divine visibility, you stop seeking validation from temporary spaces. You no longer bend to be tolerated. You no longer over-explain what God already made clear. And here's what they don't understand. God didn't just trust you to survive the hidden season. He trusted you not to change in it. He trusted that you'd stay kind when bitterness came knocking, that you'd stay anchored when the current of comparison pulled strong, that you wouldn't sell your soul for quicker progress. And now, the reward isn't just access, it's authority. Not the kind that screams, the kind that speaks once and shifts the atmosphere, the kind that turns rooms you walk into altars. Because people can feel what you've carried, what you've endured, what you refuse to give up on, and no one has to understand it for it to be yours. This isn't a group vote, it's a divine verdict. You were approved where it mattered most, not in their conversations, but in God's decision. And the thing about God's decisions? They manifest publicly what He saw privately. So yes, this reward is going to be visible. It will be felt. Not just by you, but by everyone who watched your process and didn't think it would amount to anything. This is the kind of reward that answers questions you didn't even get to ask out loud. It answers, was it worth it? Did anyone see? Did God really tell me to stay when I wanted to run? Was that yes really for something? Yes. All of it. Every hard choice, every quiet act of faith, every sacred number, every soft heart you kept when the world said harden up. God saw it, and now God is saying, it's time they see it too. But not just for your vindication, for their inspiration, because someone else is watching, and they're wondering if integrity still matters, if purity still has a place, if walking slow with God is still worth it in a world that rewards speed over substance. And when they see you rise, they'll believe again. That's the reward too. You're not just being elevated, you're becoming evidence. That obedience opens doors no algorithm can. That spiritual alignment creates results no resume explains. That what you carry isn't hype, it's holy. So when you walk forward now, walk with the knowledge. You're not just being seen, you're being entrusted again. Not because you're louder, but because you're real. Not because you're perfect, but because you stayed. And heaven always honors those who stayed. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. If this message resonated, please like, share it with someone who might benefit, and subscribe to stay connected. Continue your awakening journey by choosing one of the videos on your screen that resonates with you the most. See you there.